Alright Pistons fans, so in today's video we're going to be talking about Johnny Juzang. Finally, I'm doing a video on him. I was supposed to do one like 2 weeks ago, but I've been doing my research and I finally gotten around to doing a video on him. So let's talk about Johnny, man. So Johnny basically got his name known in the NCAA tournament where he freaking killed it. He balled out. He came up on everybody's radar. Before the tournament, you could say he was second round talent, but after the tournament, he moved up from anywhere between 20 to that 30 range. I feel like that's where he could go in the draft. And he killed the Michigan State Spartans. He dropped a 30-point game and he went up against Aaron Henry, who is one of the best defensive players in the draft. Tom Izzo said that Aaron Henry was one of the best defensive players that he's ever had at Michigan State. So that's saying something. And Johnny, he dropped 30 points against them. So let me give you guys the facts and statistics, and then I'll give you what I like and dislike about this game. So he's 20 years old, 6'7", 200 pounds. And he's coming out of UCLA, and I feel like he's the best prospect since Lonzo Ball to come out of UCLA. He averaged 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 35% from the three-point line. And again, that's before the NCAA tournament. So take those stats with a little bit of grain of salt because again, he got his name known in the tournament. So what I like about this game is that he's a bona fide scorer, man. He's a 3-level scorer. He can score inside, mid-range, and from the three-point line. In the NBA, he will have no trouble scoring the ball. He has a nice handle to him as well. I feel like at his best, he can end up being a really solid guy coming off the bench, potential 6-man just coming off the bench and scoring the ball for any team. And when you look at a team like our Pistons, we can end up using someone like Johnny. If we, with the first overall pick, get someone like Cade Cunningham and we already have Killian Hayes, those are guys who can play make. Killian is the playmaker for the most part, and then Cade can score and play make. So if you throw in someone like Johnny coming off the bench and he can play with those two guys, I believe that'll be really, really good. And he'll just give us some punch coming off the bench. We may have to trade up. We may have to use some of our second-round picks and Jahlil Okafor to trade up in this draft for somebody like him, but I believe it'll be worth it because he is someone who can really help us out coming off the bench. You think about someone like Saddiq Bey, who we took last year in the draft. Now, Saddiq Bey is much better than Johnny because Saddiq Bey can play offense and defense, and Johnny is mainly known for offense, and he's a okay defender. But in terms of, just scoring the ball, I feel like it'll be cool to have someone like Saddiq be the starter at the small forward or shooting guard position, and then having someone like Johnny come off the bench and be the small forward or shooting guard and just score the ball. So I really, really like that. I really, really like that about him. And then the next thing that I like about him is that his height and his weight is pretty good for a small forward shooting guard combination. He's also someone who has a pretty good handle, so he can handle the ball. And with that handle, he will be able to create for others. So let's talk about the negative things that I don't like about him. The things that I don't like is that sometimes he can be a pretty streaky shooter. As I mentioned, he lit it up in the NCAA tournament, but in the regular season, he was not a consistent shooter. As I mentioned, he was only 35% from the three-point line. So his shooting is good, but he needs to get more consistent once he gets to the NBA. So right now, his consistency and his three-point shooting is a negative for me. And then also in terms of defense, I feel like he needs to work on that as well in terms of off-ball defense and just overall having defensive IQ. He needs to work on his defense so that he can succeed in the NBA. And then the last negative thing, well, it's not really a negative thing about him, but I do feel like somebody's going to end up taking Johnny earlier in the draft. When I looked, I seen it was anywhere from 20 to 30, and I feel like that may be a little bit inaccurate because I do feel like one of these teams that are borderline playoff teams, I feel like they'll take a look at Johnny and end up selecting him around that 16-15 range. So if he ends up somehow going up there, then there's no way we're going to be able to get him. There's no way we're going to be able to trade for someone like Johnny, and then we'll lose out on him. So that's not really a negative about him specifically, but the idea of us getting him, I don't know if we'll be able to get him because he's one of those prospects who I feel like might get taken pretty early. So Pistons fans, let me know how y'all feel in the comment section below about us adding Johnny Juzang, another guy who can just flat out score the ball. If we bring in someone like Cade who can score and pass the ball, we already have Saddiq who can score the ball and Jeremy Grant. That means we'll have a good 4 guys who can flat out put the ball in the hole. And then obviously the starters, they'll be able to play defense, and then off the bench, we won't really have the greatest defense off the bench, but we'll darn sure have a pretty good score. And if Mason Plumlee goes back to the bench and we have Beef Stew starting, then we'll have Mason Plumlee, who is a playmaker, being able to pass the ball to Johnny and Frank Jackson and all of those guys. So off the bench, the offense I think in the future will be pretty good as well. And then just overall, he's 20 years old, so he'll be able to go and grow with our young guys. So he's on the right timeline and he can grow with them. So overall, if Johnny somehow If we have to trade up and use 2 second-round picks and possibly Jahlil Okafor or another player, I wouldn't be mad at that. I really wouldn't. You know, if they decide to sign Diallo and trade Josh Jackson so that we can move up in the draft, I wouldn't be mad at that either, because Johnny is a pretty solid player, man. So let me know how y'all Pistons fans feel in the comment section below about him. I like some things about him, I don't like some things about him, but overall, I would be cool with us trading up or somehow just getting him in the draft. Like this video, comment on this video, share this video. Thank y'all for 1K, and I'm out.